Hey guys, Bryce here from Flex Cortex. All content on the Flex Cortex podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not a substitution for medical advice from a qualified health professional. Thank you and enjoy the podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of Flex Cortex. I want to take a brief moment here at the beginning of this episode to just let everyone take a deep breath, a nice deep cleansing breath, just to de-stress a little bit.
With the nasal part.
Yeah. No. If you don't have a nasally fucking breath, then explicit already. Nice. If you don't take the nasally breath, are you really living?
All right, we're kicking this one off. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning into this one. Sorry for our little bit of a hiatus. We've both been just busy with life, and but we're still here. We're trying to put out content for you guys, and then Ian will be on our next episode. So
Yeah, very excited for that. Gonna probably do some spooky themes, even though it's not Halloween anymore. But it's still related. It's gonna be pretty exciting. I won't do the grand reveal yet.
yeah, this will be a good episode. But
Yeah, so make sure you stay tuned in so that you can catch that one. But
yeah, today will be about mental health, and we just figured this would be a good topic to talk about because both of us think that it's obviously severely overlooked. So we're going to talk about the relation with that and exercise. So Tanner will be probably talking about most of this one just because a lot of this is from nursing content. But then I'll be here to chat and give my opinion on stuff because it's what I'm good for, right?
you're good for that. You're a beautiful soul.
There we go.
Hey, so one of the things that we don't think about all the time is that physical health and mental health and the whole health wheel for a person, it's actually all interconnected. So our physical health and our mental health are actually so interconnected, um, and that actually means that when you're exercising, you can actually help your mental health, which is really great. I know it can be hard because sometimes it doesn't feel very motivating to go exercise when you have depression or anxiety or a lot of these mental health issues or stressors that come up. It can be really hard, but if you just push through, do eat the frog for the day, uh, you can actually decrease stress, increase neurogenesis, which is basically creating new brain cells, brain growth, and also it suppresses our hunger, which is unrelated, but it actually also balances our um, neurotransmitters in our brain. So things like serotonin, dopamine, it can all help with that.
Very cool.
So yeah, it's very exciting stuff. Same stuff that you get when you're doing illicit drugs or eating food. It's pretty cool that exercise is in a way a drug. A lot of people have heard that. A lot of people have heard runner's high. So it's you can chase it, and it actually can replace your addictions too.
Yeah.
Which it's one thing to try and avoid replacing one crutch with another, but honestly, if you're going to replace any crutch with something, like, exercise is a pretty good fill-in, so it's gonna help you out a lot.
There's definitely worse outlets you could be doing than going to the gym.
Exactly. A lot worse. There's a lot of options. Our society has a lot of addictions now. um, you know Consumerism, so you're doing too much shopping, you're endlessly browsing Amazon, you're eating too much food, you're doing some sort of drug or alcohol. um, there's a sex addict, that sort of thing. There's a lot out there, and it's all related to our brain still at the end of the day, and our neurotransmitters. So exercise can kind of help. It's not the be all end all. It's not going to solve all your problems instantly, um, but it's definitely a step in the right direction to kind of you know tell you that you can live life without needing that dopamine and serotonin rush from like your addiction, because you're getting it from exercise. So even if that means for that 2 hours you're not doing uh, partaking in your addiction to fuel something, it's great that instead you're doing it exercising, and it's something that's productive and good for you.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, most people start out working out thinking that it's just for your body, but it's more for the mental aspect of things. And I'd say the physical attributes just come as a byproduct, right? I think we talked about that on
yeah,
another podcast too, what how those things just kind of come hand in hand, and you start seeing all the physical things from exercising and a lot of the other psychological aspects when really you're just starting out to look better or whatever, right? Or maybe be more confident in how you look and how you feel about yourself.
yeah, and that's a good point. Like our body image, super huge for our self image, and just how we feel about ourselves. So if you can exercise and actually see those changes in yourself, even if it's just at a small scale where you don't see any difference in your body, but in the way you feel, or even just looking at the scale where you're like, oh, I went down from, X to Y. And that can be like that little bit of motivation where something clicks in your head and you're like, hey, I don't hate myself as much today. I don't hate my body. And, it starts to transform that where we ultimately want, especially as trainers, as healthcare professionals, we want you to ultimately have a good self image of yourself. We know it's hard. It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But if even we can get that, some of those gears turning to where you're like, yeah, you know what? I don't hate myself as much today. That is a success in my books. Like, even if a client had said a statement like that to me, I'd be like, that's a step in the right direction. Ultimately, we want to be like, yeah, I love myself. Um, but you know what? There's people who have been doing it for years, who are on medications on top of exercise, go to therapy, and then they still will have days where they're like, I don't really like myself today, and that's also okay. Like
Hmm.
it's not a race. There's no grand prize. It's just about living your existence and trying your best, and doing what you can to uh, make the old brain feel better.
Yeah. And I think one aspect too is like social media plays a huge impact on body image and how we see ourselves, right? And I think social media has been a great thing for lots of aspects, but I think in that regard, it's definitely made society a lot more critical, right? And it's made people a little bit more scared, right? A little bit more timid in that regard too. So I would
Yeah,
definitely just be careful and be leery on how much you consume social media, because obviously it can be good in regards of, let's say, trying to like grow your brand or network, um, but also it can maybe holding you down and causing a little more and more stress in your life if you're consuming it for the wrong reasons as well, right? Or if you're getting fixated on stuff too.
yeah, 100%. It's you start comparing yourself to your peers and feel like you're behind or whatever. And the same thing for fitness. If you're someone who has a poor body image, um, there's some people who are going to be inspired by seeing all these really fit people on Instagram.
Hmm.
But I mean, honestly, it's also totally justified if you're like, I don't want to see this. Remove it and just focus on you instead. Because I mean, it can be really discouraging to be like, I'm not there yet, but you know,
Yeah,
you got to get out of that mentality. And a lot of the time, the only way to do that is to remove it from your feed or your
yeah,
life, even if that means Instagram and Facebook or whatever
hmm,
completely. Power to you.
yeah, yeah. Seeing it and being like, how do you look like that, or thinking that you'll never look like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Uh, One of the other big things that exercise can do, which is related, is it can actually prevent and treat anxiety, because it actually will increase dopamine, and also help with serotonin, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
And it actually also helps ADHD, specifically with the motivation. Because the theory right now, I haven't looked into it in a while, so it might be more specifically like it is definitely linked to dopamine, but they think it's a insufficient dopamine
Hmm.
that causes the symptoms for ADHD
Okay.
or ADD. So yeah, that's something exercise can help with to increase your focus and your motivation.
One little side tangent just about motivation too. Something that I think we should discuss is that motivation is obviously subjective. So motivation is going to depend on the day. It's not going to be constant. So it's we've talked about it before too. It's so important to have good discipline because discipline is what's going to hold you in check and what's going to hold you to a routine and like that accountability aspect, right? Because motivation is going to come and go. Like as long as I've been working out for like the past 8 years or so, there's been times where I have not been motivated. And like
Yeah.
I think people see personal trainers as being like untouchable and they see them as being like different and they think that we're always motivated. We always want to train. We never eat bad. We never go out. We never indulge, right? But like no, like we're just like everybody else, right? And we all have internal struggles that we go through. Um, but just making sure that that discipline can hold you accountable, and then like the benefits of having a coach or even having somebody that you can just check in with, right, and kind of give you a little bit of a pep talk and make sure that you're following a program. That's all super beneficial. So, a little side tangent because I think that people think that motivation is one of the most important things, but I would say it's discipline.
Oh, 100%. 100% agree with you. Because, yeah, like you said, motivation, very temporary.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. Uh, One of the other things that exercise can do, fun fact for you, is there's something called tryptophan. I totally butchered that. Uh,
I think I did too, and I tried to think about reading that in my head. That's all good.
yeah, these decreased tryptophan. Anyway, it's a precursor to serotonin, and it's actually what's the decreased level of it is actually what is linked to aggression in uh, post menstrual syndrome or PMS, postpartum depression,
Mm-hmm.
and even menopausal symptoms. But exercise can actually bring balance to the force and hormones in this case too, to
Star
actually
Wars.
help with those symptoms.
Star Wars.
Star Wars, Star Wars references are very apt at this time of year because they like to release Star Wars at Christmas, at least the last few.
So, in case you guys want to look up the word that we just butchered, it's Tryptophan.
Yeah, it'll be on the test, so make sure to study.
Yep,
um,
at the very end. Yep,
and kind of related to PMS or at least women's health. I should not link PMS to women's health. Very, very different things. Not every woman goes through it. Blah blah blah. But one of the interesting things exercise can do is actually reverse brain damage uh, related to fetal alcohol syndrome. So if a woman has consumed or a pregnant person has consumed alcohol during pregnancy, uh, then they can actually reverse some of that damage by actually engaging in an exercise regime.
that's actually pretty
And
cool.
as long as they quit drinking too, because otherwise you're just you know putting more fire on the fire as you're trying to like one hand has the hose putting it out, and then the other hand is
Gasoline.
gasoline. So
Yeah, that's interesting though. Actually, I didn't know that.
yeah, no, this isn't even from nursing per se. Like um, it is nursing in the sense that we've learned about a lot of these uh, you know different disorders and syndromes and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But actually, this is all from Spark, the Revolutionary New Science of the Brain, which is an older book now, so it's not revolutionary and new in the same sense. But yeah, it's by a psychologist, and he did a really, really good job with the book.
In case people are listening, I'm putting up the what's that? The mint emoji or
The OK sign, bro.
the OK sign. I'm
You're
such a
too on your
boomer.
phone.
I'm such a boomer.
You're you're too old. Ooh, bless me with a cough.
Yeah, just say.
Um, but yeah, exercise during pregnancy can also reduce complication, including reducing maternal anxiety and stress, especially during labor.
Hmm.
Um, it can increase fetal responses, so that's fetal movement, so baby kicking and stuff like that, which is actually an indication of a healthy fetus. You want your baby to be moving. Um, and actually, infants born to mothers who have exercised during pregnancy had were more neurologically developed, which There was a bunch of tests that the psychologists did, um, and when they did testing later on, they actually found that those babies had a higher IQ for those tests. IQ is very flawed, and I'm pretty sure even in this case, the IQ level did not stay increased. So it's not like you're keeping a genius baby forever, but that exercise does help with the neurogenesis, like I said at the beginning. Um, so it does help their skills, including like oral language skills, develop faster.
That's cool. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, yeah,
Facts.
it's really really cool, and it's all related to the neurogenesis that exercise causes. Like that's it's that, and then the hormonal changes, and it's sort of magic. It's modern day magic, man. But moving away from pregnancy, and a last point for today, at least related to the book, is that exercise can also reverse cell deterioration, also linked to part of the neurogenesis. So it can counteract some of aging's natural dopamine decline, which also might guard against Parkinson's, which is a dopamine deficiency disorder or disease. Um, so yeah, it's really all this boils down to get busy living with your body and using it, or you will lose it and you will get busy dying. So
To sum it up.
feel like it's all about mental health in this one, but just to depress you.
Well, yeah, I think people definitely overlook just little bits of movement and increasing movement over time, right? And I think we talked about walking before and how important walking is and how it's a light form of activity and how pretty much everybody can throw it into their regimen or throw it into their life in some sort. So um definitely start just moving more, like especially for people that work a job where you're sitting for most of the day, or a job
Yeah,
that you're super high stress too, like if you're like a sales job or working like a desk job, like you'd be surprised how good you feel after going for like a 10-minute walk.
100%.
Yeah,
Or even just standing up every 20 to 30 minutes.
yeah,
Just quickly stand up, stretch your legs.
yeah.
It helps a lot, especially with lower back pain.
Walking to the water fountain, even just like
Yeah,
walking there coming back, right? Like, and like you said too, back pain, like that's a whole nother topic for a different time. But the correlation with sedentary lifestyle and more, I guess, I don't want to say the word tighter, but like you could say like tighter tissue, right? Which is restricting movement too. Um, quote unquote tighter tissue, restricting movement, which is causing what feels like back pain. So it's probably more likely just your hips, but
yeah. I don't have we had an episode on flexibility yet?
I don't know. That could be a good one to do.
Yeah, because flexibility is huge for even if you've been working out for 8 years like Bryce. There's a lot of people who have worked out that long and could work on their flexibility a little bit.
Man, I'm so flexible. What do you
The
mean?
most flexible.
Like, look at this. Ready?
Oh,
Oh,
Bryce just did the splits. If you're
yeah, I
listening
did the
on
splits. I
Spotify,
did the splits. That's just for you guys that listen to just the audio. I just did the splits.
yeah. If you're watching the YouTube video, then you know I am a very creative person.
Yeah, yeah. But that that was something that we just wanted to talk about for a bit because I think, well, we know that mental health is very important, and then a lot of these cool, interesting facts that I didn't know about it either. So obviously, it just shows how important it is, and we've talked about it in other episodes. But starting out with something that you can ease into and that you can actually maintain, right, and sustain, but then also just like it doesn't hurt to have the help of a coach, especially if you are, like we talked about today too, like if you're pregnant, or if you have some of these other conditions, it's good to work with somebody that is specialized and is able to work with your population, right? So they can give you the help that you need. Most importantly, though, it is never a bad idea to reach out and ask for help. So always feel like inclined to do that. And lastly, Tanner and I are not doctors. What we're just talking about today, obviously, is just research, stuff that we've come across from our own experiences as well. But then also just pulling a lot from, he said, books, from a lot of his resources through school. So again, a lot of this stuff is just good for reference, but don't be afraid to reach out to somebody and don't be afraid to get help if you need it.
Yeah. It's really important to get that help when you can, and know the resources for your area. So yeah,
I think that'll be wrapping that one up for today. It's pretty short, but the next one will probably be a little bit longer because we'll have Ian on, and it'll be a fun one for sure. So make sure to tune into that one. And obviously, we hope that you learned something from this. If you guys have any further questions, you can DM one of us on IG. Um, obviously, we have our handles linked to there, but if we can't help you, then we can put you into the right direction for someone that can.
exactly. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening to this episode of Flex Cortex.
Thanks, guys.